Hey, Vivi.
Hi, Tayshawn.
Welcome and welcome home.
Thank you.
And welcome and thank you. Welcome to the show. Thank you for agreeing to do this show. Thank you for agreeing to be the first guest on episode 1 of this web series, podcast, online discussion, whatever. Wonderfulness.
Yes.
So for people who know me but don't know you, or for people who don't know either one of us, can you tell a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I'll start with my name. My name is Viviana.
My name is Tayshawn.
I was born in Montclair.
I was born in Orange.
I grew up in East Orange.
Montclair, New Jersey?
Montclair, New Jersey.
I was born in Orange, New Jersey.
I grew up in East Orange, New Jersey.
I grew up in East Orange, New Jersey too.
I moved away to Colorado for 7 years.
Okay, I did not.
And then I moved back to New Jersey. Moved around a little bit and then settled in Newark.
Settled in Newark. What are you good at?
Okay. I am good at creative professional services.
Okay, let's dial that down. Not what are you selling? What are you good at? What are you as an individual? What are you good at?
I think of the weirdest things when you ask that question. So
Like
the
what?
first thing I thought of was support. What are you good at? Support.
That's a fact.
Yeah, but the question, I hear the question often and I often answer it in my head.
Mm-hmm.
And the answers are always different.
Right.
It's never like, I do this, like that's my answer. So, what am I good at?
Mm-hmm.
I'm good at, I'm really good at event production.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very good at organizing thoughts.
Okay.
Process plan type of deal, spreadsheets. I love spreadsheets. But I'm really good at being creative, thinking outside the box, using my hands as art. I'm also a graphic designer, videographer, web designer, hand lettering, content creator, makeup artist.
You're a rather dynamic content creator, yeah.
Yeah, so yes.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. So the reason why I wanted to talk to you for the first episode of the show, and I'm going to talk to you, in numerous episodes periodically, but the reason why I wanted to talk to you first was because, the premise of this podcast is my interests, my curiosities, my perspectives, my ideologies, and those of, whoever I'm speaking to that I find interesting. And because you and I have these conversations regularly and naturally, I thought, it'd make the most sense to have you as the first guest on the podcast or on the show or on the whatever the vocabulary and verbiage evolves into. And so one of the things that you and I talk about often, and that in mixed company and just between ourselves, is our relationship and our individual journeys of like self-discovery and clarity and unlearning and deprogramming and all of that. And we both grew up as Jehovah's Witnesses, and so that's like a very conservative religion. It's very it has a very specific culture. Outside of what is specifically like Bible doctrine, there are certain things that are just the culture of that religion,
right,
the organization.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of that cultural programming we have now since kind of shed and uh, like grown out of, intentionally grown out of. You know what I mean?
Right.
Does that make sense to you?
The intentionally grown out of part strikes me.
How do you mean?
Because I don't know that it was an intentional thing.
Well, I don't think always, but I think at a certain point, I can speak for me. At a certain point, I realized that part of me was still like lingering in ideologies and lingering in a certain worldview that I didn't consciously subscribe to, but it was just the pattern had been so deeply, you know what I mean, ingrained in me. Yeah, and so there was a point where I had to there was a point where I realized that I couldn't truly grow into my own individual, the person that I am, the person that I want to become, unless I addressed not only the things that I want to become, but the things that I was taught that I was taught to want to become or taught to want to be that I don't actually want to be.
Right.
You know what I mean? So things like I'm not a political person. I'm not interested in, politics, like at all. But a lot of that I know comes from growing up in that religion. And not that I'm deciding like, all right, well, now I want to get into politics to prove that I'm, in no way a Jehovah's Witness. Like,
right.
It's not that, but I'm saying like I'm acknowledging like where in my thinking and where in my perspective of politics is it a matter of like where do I see the value in what it is, even if I'm not interested in it, or do I just cast it all as like I'm not interested because politics is murky and I just want to stay away from it. You know what I mean? And like, so there are certain things about it where I understand and I'm willing to consider and engage and talk to people and whatnot, and listen to people on the subject of politics. But I don't personally have very much interest in politics as most people do. Like, I don't want to talk about Donald Trump.
Right.
I don't want to talk about him for very long at all.
Right.
I think there are interesting things to talk about when it comes to Donald Trump. I think there are interesting things to talk about when it comes to, anybody who's at that level of a public platform. But I don't want to talk about Republican, Democrat. I don't want to talk about, all those types of things. I don't want to get into the weeds of all of that. I'm not interested.
Right.
So I'm curious to hear you talk about like, in what ways have you come into yourself and come into your own like ideologies and whatnot past the person that you were taught to be?
So I think one thing that I can speak to is how long it's taken me to be okay with being skilled. My mom was an artist, and she stopped sketching. She was a wonderful artist. She once drew her mother laying in a coffin because like she had a dream and woke up and sketched it. And it was spitting image, her mother, it was like so like eerie. So she was a really good artist, and she stopped because like, she was more into fashion sketching. And she saw the trends of the world going into tighter clothing, higher, skirts and lower tops, and she didn't want any part of that because she was strongly believed in what's the word, like you're dressed like you're covered up, modesty, yes. So You know, so she had a skill set that she just completely like didn't like abandon.
Yeah.
And out of my two siblings that I grew up with, I was a lot more of the creative. My sister did a lot more. Like she did like little decorations on tables, favors and stuff like that. My brother, at the time, I didn't know who he was yet. Like he wasn't into who he was becoming yet. But at a really early age, like I was doing makeup on my sister and her friends. I was creating invitations and stuff for people. But it was like this fear of being great. This fear of being well known and, you know, talking to people that were not in the religion. It was like, oh, you know, I can't befriend you, or I can't even like have a business relationship with you because you're not a part of this organization that I'm a part of, and we can't be friends. And so it wasn't until like I'm no longer in the religion that and it's like many, many, many years later that I'm starting to like be comfortable with being great at things. And it's like I'll be 41 on Saturday. And it's taken me entirely too long to discover who I am and what I'm good at and being comfortable with that and not having the judgment of my mom or, you know, what's the organization going to say if you become too popular or too great. And it was always this like, just do enough to make a living, but nothing more.
Gotcha.
You know, so that's one thing that I can say that I no longer hold on to. The what is it called when you let your light dimming my light. And I think one other thing is probably like sensuality. I was taught that it was just not a good, like it wasn't, don't be sexy. And everything I did, my mom would pinpoint was sexy. You walk sexy, talk sexy. Well, you know, that joke was too sexy. And I'm like, what are you even talking about? What is sex? Like, what is this thing you keep saying that I am? So it's even stopped me from expressing myself through song and dance. Like I was a little performer when I was younger, and I feel stifled from letting that joy come out because of, you know, I hear my mom in the background. And I say my mom, but I think it's more so how she was raised in the religion as well. Right. You know, so because my mom was also a performer, you know, singing, dancing. My aunts were singing opera. They were the Jets, you know, from West Side Story. They were the Dream Girls, you know. Like my mom and her sisters were always performing for us too. So it was only because of like a certain move, like gyrating or moving my hips, or, you know, that was like uncalled, like do not. That is not dancing. That's sexual. Right. I'm being sexual at 9 years old. Mimicking, like, you know, what I see.
I think that's interesting from another perspective. Like, you know, obviously I've watched you for some time now, just, you know, observing you. And one thing that I observed from you and that other people have even spoken to is like you have a very strong, like your eyes are very attention grabbing and very stunning. You know what I mean? And, you know, there's what I've noticed, like something will happen and it's like you'll be looking at somebody or looking at me or whoever it is, but you're looking because of an intensity of like curiosity or paying attention to that person or whatnot. But outside your eyes, it just looks like this woman is putting the tractor beam on me, and like I'm paralyzed right now, and she's putting a spell on me. And it's like where you're like, no, I wanted to hear the story.
Right.
Or whatever the thing.
Right. I was listening. I was paying attention.
Yeah, I was paying attention, right? It's like eye contact from me and eye contact from you are not the same thing. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Eye contact for most people is not like what it's like from you. Mm-hmm. Just because you have these very, very alluring eyes. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? But that's not something that you're consciously thinking of as you listen to somebody.
Right.
Unless you're trying to be seductive.
Right.
But what I observed over time is like more times than not, you're not trying to be seductive.
Right.
You just have the eyes. Like you know what I'm saying? Or more times than not, you're not trying to look a certain way when you walk. You just have the hips.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? People who don't have the hips, they either force it, and they're like switching as they walk, or they just don't have it.
Right.
And it's like there is nothing about it that's attention grabbing. It's just like it's transportation. A person is just walking.
Right. It's transportation.
Like, you know what I'm
saying? Right.
So I can see how like so many things could like stifle you as a younger person because you literally weren't doing anything.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
But like from the outside, somebody looking on could just be easily affected by your nothing. You know what I mean?
Right. I remember being at Bernadette's house. Mm-hmm. And, she has a pole in her living room. Mm-hmm. And Cameron was on the pole. The kids liked being on the pole. It was like, they're playing on it, taking turns. Mm-hmm. But Cameron really took to it. She's athletic. She's, does gymnastics and things. So she was very flexible and could do tricks and spins and turns and,
And how old was she at the time?
She was probably...
Like 12?
12? Yeah, I was going to say 11. But yeah, like maybe 11, 12.
Okay.
And there was a thought and an immediate switch. Mm-hmm. The thought was she shouldn't be on pole, right? Like,
and it's a pole, like it's a pole dancing pole.
Right, it's a pole dancing pole. Right. And the second thought was she's having fun. She doesn't know what this pole is. That they're playing. It was just so innocent. And Bernadette said to me, "It's not dirty unless you make it dirty."
Right.
And that was like, it grounded it for me. I was like, there's nothing that she can do that I would ever deem inappropriate because I know like where the innocence is coming from.
Right. And that makes me think like fast forward a few years later when she's like, I think she was like 16 doing a photo shoot for somebody and they were like, be sexy. And she like I don't have that in my tool chest.
Exactly.
And everybody like the people on the set were like, do your sexy look and your sexy eyes. And she's like, I don't have it. Like,
I don't do that.
I don't know what to do.
Yes.
So like it really went to show like it was so far removed, or it was so far the opposite of what you could have inferred or could have like just placed onto it. You know what I'm saying? Like you and as parents you generally do like
we just stop our kids from being great, period.
Yeah.
Because of fear or because of
fear.
Like the amount of things in the beginning raising Cameron that I was just like, don't do that. Stop doing that. Mm-hmm. Or go back and change that, and not knowing the kind of kid I was. Yeah. I didn't always match. I liked messy hair. I liked different patterns but I liked dressing myself and I liked expressing myself that way. When you're a kid, there's not many ways you can express yourself, but through, either writing, some creative outlet or your clothes, and I remember it used to irritate me so bad. Cameron would wear mismatched socks. And then it dawned on me. I'm like, that's like the way I was raised, coming out of me. There's nothing wrong with her wearing mismatched socks. Yeah. You know, like there's nothing wrong with the clothes, like you're expressing yourself with polka dots and stripes, and you know, have it. Right.
Yeah, and then like years later, you look into like high fashion, and they're doing like super like wild off things.
Exactly. Yeah. Color blocking. And all kinds of like
putting polka dots and stripes together. Right. Contrasting patterns and colors and pink and brown and all this like stuff that all along it was like, don't do this, you can't do this, and then now the highest of fashion is doing these things.
Or socks come mismatched now. Like you don't get 2 pairs of the same sock in a pack. You know, so but what I do appreciate is that I'm able to identify this is something I don't want to pass on to her. Yeah. Heal it. Like, you know, like get over it, like not get over it, but like work through the stigma that you're stuck on so that you don't pass this thing on to your kid who doesn't pass it on to her kid. You know, because I believe her father and I raised her to be a very dynamic woman without, as much as possible, without insecurities, without, you know, self-doubt, all the confidence in the world, you can do it. And just where her headspace is at now, you know, even with the opposite sex and, you know, not being ready to date and all this stuff. I'm not having conversations with her about not being ready, but she's identifying things in herself that tells her she's not ready. And I'm just like,
what do you think? Do you think like when it comes to having kids and being able to identify, I think there are certain things in my life that fortunately I was in a space to like stop and pay attention to myself in this context. Like when I got married, I learned things about myself that I hadn't known about myself prior because I wasn't living with a woman prior. I wasn't taking care of a woman every day prior. And blah, blah, blah. When my ex-wife had our kids, like being a father now, like showed me things about myself. You know what I mean? And some of those things are like the things that I am, a lot of those things are my flaws. Like I learned that I could become greater through parenthood and marriage. I learned that I don't have the capacity that I wake up with. I can grow into a larger capacity. Right. But I also learned like a lot of my insecurities and a lot of my flaws and a lot of my fears by way of, you know, fatherhood and marriage and whatnot. And I don't think that it's common that people stop and sit with those ideas and those thoughts of like, you know, I'm afraid of a thing that isn't really real and I'm passing it on. You know what I mean? Like I need to check myself. And I also need to have a conversation with my child about what my experience has been. And like, because there are so many things that we still pass on to our kids because we didn't have that conscious thought. But if we could just stop and talk to our kids as we have these transitional revelations, you know what I mean? And be like, listen, this is happening and I want you to understand that like, I'm not the author of it. My parents aren't the author. Their parents weren't the author. But this is definitely something that's been passed down. And at a certain point, I was passing it to you, and then I realized how wrong it was. Right.
And there are times when, you know, I think the reason why I love my relationship with my daughter is because I want to be transparent. I want to let my kid know that I've made mistakes, that, you know, that it's not always easy. I am not Superwoman, you know, so that way she doesn't feel like she has to be Superwoman either. Mommies look like the do-alls, you can't do anything wrong. And when she messes up or makes a mistake, she feels like it's impossible to come to me because mommy's so perfect.
Right,
and
right.
she has this, idolization of what her mom is. And is that the right word?
Yeah.
Okay. You just made a face. But I think that has made us closer.
You're saying that she does have that? Like idolization, or that?
Yeah, in the beginning she did. Like we would have these conversations, and
she thought you were just.
She thought I was just like flawless,
yeah.
And I'm just like, darling, I'm far from it.
Mm-hmm.
So when there's conversations she'll bring up, and about her friends, about boys,
mm-hmm.
about work, about money,
about
money.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just like, she's so much better with money than I ever was at her age.
Mm-hmm.
And we were probably making the same amount of money. Like I made money very early in my life, and didn't know what to do with it.
Right.
I paid my parents like some kind of form of rent.
Right.
I paid my cell phone bill.
Mm-hmm.
I paid for my first car. I had insurance and all that. But that wasn't like, I had so much surplus.
And this is not financial health.
Right.
This is just expensive.
This is just expensive. Yeah. Like not budgeting. This isn't
investing in anything. Not saving.
Exactly.
Not purpose. Not all these other things.
So, I kind of lost my train of thought. But
you're saying like she was so much better at money.
Yeah.
Than you were.
But basically, that I humanized myself to her, and we're able to talk, real talk, and not, a child, talking to her flawless mother.
Right.
Please.
Right.
And it's just brought me down to earth with her.
Yeah.
And we talk about choices. We talk about, repercussions, adverse effects of a decision that's made. And good or bad, there's a effect to your cause, So there's always going to be a ripple because of the decision you made.
Right.
So I just tried hard to keep an open line of communication there, and just be real with her, you know?
Yeah. That made me think about something that I've been kind of like just playing with in my head recently, and it's like so many of life's pains come down to the fear of thinking and the fear of acting. Like fear of thought and fear of action. Mm-hmm. And so like when it comes to like fear of thought, like a lot of times, let's use money. Like a lot of times people don't want to think about money past a certain point.
Right.
Like they don't want to think about the idea of paying yourself first. The idea of saving, or the idea of investing and using money in a certain way. The idea of how they spend money. People spend by way of their impulses. Mm-hmm. They don't think about how to spend money. They just think about what they want.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
You get $1 million. What's the first thing you do?
Yeah, how you gonna spend it?
Clothes, food, car.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, yeah.
And like you never hear somebody say, I'm gonna take $800,000 of it and hide it for myself.
Right.
Because $200,000 is more money than I've ever had at one time, and I can do some wild stuff with that myself. Right. But like,
and bless some people too, like.
But even with that, it's like you could like, even that can be a poor use of money. You know what I'm saying? Because even that blessing can be very, just like immediate and futile. You could bless somebody with a gift, and then 5 years down the line, that gift could be forgotten, destroyed, ruined, lost, whatever. You know what I mean? I remember when I got married, we didn't have an expensive wedding. We went on our honeymoon.
You went on a honeymoon?
Yeah. And, we had gotten some money from, the guests at the wedding and the reception and whatnot, and we spent so much money on buying people gifts, like our families and loved ones and close friends. Like
gifts on our honeymoon.
Yeah, on our honeymoon. You know what I mean? Like we were buying gifts for people, and after a while, you look back and it's like that was so silly.
Yeah,
that was so very silly. Like, these people literally gave us money to help start our lives off together.
Yeah,
and we thought
bought them shot glasses
to buy them. Yeah, like you know what I mean. And it was just the way we were thinking about money was not like at the time we thought buying our friends and family gifts is noble. Right. And generous and thoughtful and a blessing to them. You know what I mean? And in reality, like, no, you were wasting the blessing to you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You weren't doing the wise thing with money.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
You went on a honeymoon?
Yeah. Why is that so?
I didn't go on a honeymoon.
Okay.
How was that? What was that like?
It was fun. We went to Florida. It was just the first time either one of us were like away and adults and whatever. Like it was.
That's dope.
It was good.
Yeah.
But like when we think about, the fact that we don't like to think about things like that, we don't like to think past our influences. We don't like to think past our, gratification and you know what I mean. We don't like to think about the consequences to the choices that we make.
Right. Right.
Like that's why, the idea of what's it called when somebody doesn't go to the military, conscientious objective. All right, somebody like Muhammad Ali was a conscientious objective. He didn't go to the war. He didn't enlist in the draft because out of his religious reasons. But conscientious objective means that like you're aware of what it means to say no to this thing. You know what I'm saying? So you're aware that means that you could go to prison, or that means that you could be stripped of your titles or whatever your things are. You know what I'm saying? People don't like to think of those things.
Right.
You know what I mean? They think like, I'll cross that bridge when I get to it.
Right.
So fear of thought is like the cause of so many of our problems because we're just crossing bridges as we get to it. You know what I mean? And then the other fear is the fear of acting. Like we're afraid. People are afraid to act because they're afraid to be committed past a certain point. You know what I mean? Because like once I take an action, I can't undo it.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like if whatever it is, if it's anything, whether it's like making a purchase or the idea of saving money, right? So and I don't want to talk about money. I'm not the financial advisor, but the idea that like if I hide money from myself, if I put money into an investment vehicle that I don't have access to, the feeling is that I've lost money because I've lost access to it.
Right.
So it's like I don't want to act. I don't want to commit.
I just want to hold on to it.
I want to have
just
freedom
have it
of
and check my account and see that it's there.
Yeah. And then Amazon.com later.
Right. And that number just dwindles.
Yeah. You know what I mean? And so, like, there's so many things that like people just afraid to act, afraid to, afraid to just take a action on. You know what I mean? But I think that A, is a really good lesson to learn in that, and I think that B, it speaks to how much pain is self-inflicted because we are sentient and we are able-bodied.
Right.
We have the ability to think and act. Like that's what makes us different than the animal kingdoms. Like we have the ability to think and reason. We have the ability to play out something in our mind and different possible options and da-da-da. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And like, we're not inanimate objects either. We have the ability to act. We have the ability to move. We have the ability to grow. You know what I'm saying? So like having those things and those two things being things that people so very commonly run from explain why people have so many struggles and sufferings and pains in their lives. You know what I'm saying? It's like you're not doing the thing that makes you a human being. You know? Just wanted to share some of that brilliance with you. while these cameras were rolling.
We haven't touched not once on our relationship, and that's
or ours.
Yeah, you said that was you opened it up by saying,
"Oh, that's one of the things we talk about." Well, yeah. What do you want to talk about? Anything?
Well, no. The last time we spoke, I said save it for the podcast.
Do you remember what we talked about?
I don't.
Which is, for the record, Viviana coined the name of the podcast, Save It for the Podcast, because that's something that's so commonly said when having the conversations that either Viviana and I have, or that I have with other people.
Right.
It's like, man, this we should be recording this, or we gotta save it for the podcast.
Right. So, do you have a lineup of guests? Like,
I have some people lined up. I have some people that I'd like to have. I have some people that I've talked to about having, and I have some people that are like, we're thinking of other people that I could have on the podcast. Part of it is going to be figuring out how to do this virtually, because everybody that I want to have as a guest won't be able to come here to do it. So
gotcha.
There will be some, virtual aspect.
That's cool. And are there any taboo topics?
I don't think so. I think about it like this. There are subjects that, whether it was a podcast or sitting at a bar, I'm not gonna have with just anybody.
Really?
Yeah, like there's some things that's like I don't want to answer that question for your curiosity. And whether there was an online audience or not, I'm not talking about that with you.
Right.
Whoever that you is.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So I think about it that way. Like I think, everybody who sits in the seat that you're sitting in now, whatever conversations we have, like you don't have to answer every question. Everybody has the ability to say, it's not something I really want to talk about.
Got you.
And we move right along.
So you got all this footage about me talking about my... No, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
No, I feel you. I'm excited about it. I'm looking forward to all the conversations you're going to have. The questions people have for you. I love when people ask you questions. You are a very introspective, constantly thinking person.
Okay.
You're dynamic yourself, so like I want people to really kind of get to know you beyond surface conversation. Yeah. What makes you tick? Why does watching certain movies make you tear up?
Yeah. Well, I don't know if people would know what a movie that's made me tear up.
Well,
I don't know if anybody outside of you.
Someone can ask. When was the last time you teared up over a movie?
Yeah, I wonder what it was. I know I've teared up recently watching a movie. I don't remember what movie it was though. Do you?
I do.
Who was it?
It was Jingle Jangle.
What part was it?
Towards the end, when he got his intervention, he got Andre 3000 to work.
That is not his name.
What's the name?
No, it was like something 3000. Buddy 3000.
Buddy 3000.
When he got 3 stacks to work.
Oh wow.
Okay, yeah. I think that certain movies that generally make me cry have a lot to do with a love that you can't put words into. So Braveheart is a movie like that. Like the love that he had for his wife that got murdered. That was something that was never articulated exactly what it was. But it was something that made him, it softened him, you know what I mean? It made him think in a different way than what William Wallace, you know what I mean, was generally known for. Or I remember A Knight's Tale made me cry because of the
stars.
Not the changing the stars. I mean, yeah, it's related to that, but like his father, when his father sent him to live with that knight, like, because his father was poor. I don't know if his father knew he was losing his sight. I don't know if that was ever even like, you know what I mean, spoken of. But like, he also knew that like his son could learn so much more.
Yeah.
You know, if he had the provisions that this.
I think that's what he said, right? He says like, I've taught you all that I can. It's time for you to learn more from somebody else.
Yeah. And it was just like, that was like, holy moly.
Yeah.
I cried like a boy. Yeah, but it's usually that kind of dynamic to a movie. Obviously, John Q. At the end of John Q, when his son does the flex thing, like if you don't cry to that, I don't.
You can't.
You can't come on this show. That's gonna be the rule. Like moving forward, like if that part doesn't get you choked up, I don't want to have a conversation with you.
Right.
You're a cyborg.
Right. I think any movie that has a score.
You cry for so many things.
I for so many things.
You cry for the music. You cry for the applause. You cry for the lines.
I cry. I think one of the biggest things that makes me emotional is the champion.
Like coming into their,
like their
glory.
Greatness, and I think that just because it resonates so much with me.
Yeah.
That it's like challenge after challenge. Like, what's that? The Pursuit of Happiness.
Yeah.
Yo, you know what I mean? Like, he got like trampled on. The world just messed with him.
Right.
And he had his son.
Right.
And he gave his last. Like,
right.
Oh, man. And then, like, that ending, like, that applause he gave himself. Fuck.
Yeah.
I'm a sucker for, like, the underdog winning.
Yeah. Yeah. Like that self.
Yeah. Realization. And
that inner
pride. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. To that point, what experiences make you feel radiant? What makes you feel like I am standing in my moment? And it can be large or small, but like those are the types of things I'm curious about when it comes to people generally.
That's a tough question for me because I don't often feel radiant. But I try to like accept my wins. And I have to force myself to like brag a little or be proud of something that I accomplished. Like, it was a grand moment planning a burlesque show in another city in Baltimore.
Right.
And we're used to 60, 70 people in New York.
Right.
And over 300 people showed up
in
a garage. Like, a garage is not, small.
Right. And it's not anywhere near like what Cyber Impact's environments.
Right, exactly.
Especially in New York, we're like.
But from, like, being part of the planning, or organizing people coming from multiple locations to show up, making sure people have a place to stay, the set design, costume design, the experience people were going to have, having things on their seats and pre-printed things and just making a radiant space for people to enjoy themselves.
Yeah.
A curated cocktail, like we sold out. Like it was such a grand experience.
Yeah.
That
you actually made happen.
Yeah. Definitely with a wonderful team.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but that I played a part in something so great and was captured, you know, photos are beautiful.
Right.
So I think like when I accomplished something that was challenging to me and I made it through.
Okay.
So we're hard on ourselves.
Yes.
I'm super hard on myself.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to be perfect, but I want everything to just work flawlessly, which never happens.
Mm-hmm.
But when something, I don't even like using the word pulled it off, right? Because that means like you didn't really put much effort into it, and it just so happened, and you know that's a pull off.
Right.
I worked my ass off.
Right.
You know what I mean? And to see something done and be successful, like that's a radiant moment.
Yeah.
When I'm able to interpret people's thoughts and feelings about their company into a logo or a web design, and they're like, I don't know what I want, but when I hear the passion in their voice, and then I can just create something one time.
Right.
Like, here are your pick of 3, and they're like, oh my God, these are all 3.
Right. I want them all.
I want them all.
Yeah.
Or can we combine? Like, they start going crazy.
Right.
That makes me feel good.
Right. Right.
Because I'm not sure. And oftentimes people come to me after going through a few people. So they're kind of like on their last breath in a sense about their hope, their passion project, or their company. They want.
Yeah.
And a logo says a lot about your company.
Of course.
And I don't know that people actually realize that, like, as much as you identify with at McDonald's Golden Arches and Nike swoosh and, all these different logos that you can just recognize by the color, by the font, it goes a long way to, invest in your logo.
Right.
That's a whole nother topic. But I feel radiant when I'm able to capture other people's dreams and have it designed so that they can have their company produce their apparel or whatever their product, their service, exactly.
Yeah. That's awesome. I feel like these are the types of questions, and you know this already, but I think these are far more interesting questions to ask. Like, I like to ask these questions like the first time I meet somebody.
Oh, yeah.
What are you good at? And
I love watching people squirm.
Yeah. But I understand this squirming because, it's not usually the question that you get asked. Like, you get asked,
a stranger,
what do you do
right?
For a living.
Yeah.
And a lot of times people will answer, what are you good at with what they do for a living?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But I want to know, you know what I mean? I want to know you dance really well. I want to know you are supportive. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
I want to know that, I want to know you make an incredible, rice and peas. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I want to know those things because those things matter in terms of, the person that you are.
Right.
You know what I mean? Being a good social worker, it's like that doesn't speak to you in the same way.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Because if you won the lottery today, you wouldn't be a social worker tomorrow, no matter how good you are at it. But you'd still make your rights probably. You know what I'm saying? So that's who you are.
Gotcha.
You know
Right.
But I enjoy these types of questions because number one, it's like these are telling, and then also it is the factor of how comfortable a person is, like with these ideas, sitting with these ideas, considering these things about themselves, and then sharing them with somebody.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you should be able to share what you're good at with anybody. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. You should be able to share what makes you feel radiant. with anybody.
Yeah.
Sometimes that thing is like just when you say something really funny and it makes people laugh, that makes you feel radiant to have given people a good laugh.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's not like necessarily what makes you feel like, you know, Leonardo DiCaprio at the front of the Titanic. But just like, what makes you feel like this was like, this moment fed back into my spirit.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Whether it's like watching somebody eat your cooking or seeing somebody. I feel radiant when I dance with somebody, when I dance with a woman, and my dancing makes her feel less self-conscious about dancing. Right. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Because like I dance because it's a feeling of freedom, it's a feeling of expression, it's a lot of things. You know what I mean? And that's why I like it. I don't like to dance because I like poses and because I like to do the running man. But like, yeah, I'm never gonna do that. But like, you know what I mean? I don't like to dance because I like to make the moves. I like to dance because I like the free expression.
The way it makes you feel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, you know, when that gives somebody else permission to have that freedom, like that makes me feel fantastic. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Yeah, just things like that.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that a lot of these conversations, a lot of these topics, you know, these discussions, I think they happen more than they get credit for, but I do think they need to be more public. I think people need to know that there is a mother who's having these thoughts about motherhood and about womanhood, and there is a divorcee guy who's having these thoughts about what he learned about himself through marriage and There's I think that these types of conversations, I don't think they're not normalized. No. I don't think, but I do think they happen probably more than they get credit for. But they also need to just become normalized. Right. I mean, that's how I feel at least.
Right. It's part of healing too.
It's part of healing. It's a part of growth. It's a part of like connecting to yourself. Like, yeah. I want to know who I actually am. Right. You know what I mean?
Right. Do you like yourself?
Yeah. I do. I know I like myself because I know the things that I don't like about myself. So I know I don't like everything about myself. Right. You know what I mean? But right. I don't like my inability to speak without pausing to collect the next phrase. You know what I mean? But like that's annoying to me to hear it back. I know that about myself. You know what I mean? As much as I enjoy conversation. Right. I know that I'm not fluid. I'm not a fluid conversationalist. You know what I'm saying?
Right. But do you find that most people are?
I don't know. But I'm just more critical of it.
Because it's you.
Myself. But I know I don't like it.
No, I understand.
Yeah. But yeah, I do like myself. Do you like yourself?
I do like myself. Mm-hmm. I like who I'm becoming even more. Yeah. And I like that I'm significantly different than who I used to be. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm kind of dope.
You're very dope.
Thanks. How are you?
Thank you.
And I like you.
I like you too. You should kiss after this.
We should.
Well, that said, I'm
we gotta go.
Cut this. This was a great conversation. Thank you so much for making the time to do this.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing yourself. Thank you for, your energy.
Thanks, and thank you for this opportunity. Thank you for actually putting this together and teeing up people to be on your show.
Yeah.
You have great conversation. I'm looking forward to hearing all of them.
Thank you. Appreciate it. And we're up.